Oh, Patrick Monotoglu and your fundamentals. Welcome, as always, to mytenniscoaching.com and My Tennis Coaching on YouTube. And I came across a post by Patrick Monotoglu, my good friend-ish from the south of France, on LinkedIn. And I was quite shocked and surprised that I've seen a Monotoglu post because I've unfollowed him on most social media platforms. But it appears that he still is on my LinkedIn. And as I was scrolling, I came across the word fundamentals, and that instantly drew my attention. And I'll put the post up on the screen now. And the post is a classic Monotoglu post, to be honest, very much focused on technique and uses the word fundamentals an awful lot. Look at the fundamentals of this player. Look how they get the racket back early, and so on and so forth. And the fundamental thing comes up every single day, even today. And this is a few days after I replied to Monotoglu on LinkedIn. I had an inbox based on the video that I posted yesterday on YouTube with the little player who is playing under-8 red stage tennis. And I changed the court size, and I was working on them to be more adaptable and versatile with the forehand. And the coach sent me an inbox saying, but surely you must tell them how to hit the ball in those situations. Surely it just doesn't work. Like, they need the fundamentals. So it's something that comes up an awful lot. So I replied to Monotoglu. I didn't get a reply back, unfortunately, and I put the reply up on the screen now. And this concept of fundamentals is so flawed. And the first thing that I highlighted in the reply was skills aren't built as such. They're not. You don't develop a basic level of skill, a fundamental level, and then layer it on top. And then it gets more complex. We don't go from simple to complex with skills in that traditional linear fashion that we think. And in the research of Davis, Button, and Bennett, it says skills development is nonlinear. And what happens with a player? So let's say the under-8 player from the video yesterday. When that player goes to under-9, the task changes because the court gets bigger, the ball gets quicker. Therefore, the environment itself changes. Therefore, the player has to adapt her skill to deal with that bigger size court. And even in that red video yesterday where I changed the court size at red, the player is not developing a basic level of skill and then laying stuff on top. They're just developing the skill of hitting the forehand, but they're finding multiple different ways to do it. Like I mentioned in the video, repetition without repetition. So this whole concept that we start off with a basic level of skill and we scale it up is completely flawed. And obviously, being Monotoglu, there's a huge focus on technique. And again, I replied with some evidence-based stuff from Renshaw. Technique doesn't exist as such as we know it. There's no way to hit the ball because your movement or your technique, it's adaptable to the environment that you're in. So the player that he has in the video, their movement or their technique, it's adapting to the ball that they're receiving. It's adapting to their emotional state. It's adapting to the type of court they're playing on, the type of ball they're receiving, the type of opponent they're playing against. There's so much adaptation going on. And within the post, he highlights all these technical points. And the danger is coaches, parents, players will read that post, or they'll see it on YouTube, or they'll see it on social media, and then they'll go and try and apply those teaching points to their game or their child's game or their player's game. And it's completely flawed, but because he's used the word fundamentals, these are the basics. People believe it, and people listen, and people think, okay, that's what we need to do. And then we try and get this shoehorn of technique onto young players. Technique, movement, skill. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. The movement changes based on the environment and the task at hand. And last but not least, perception-action coupling. The technique, the movement is going to change based on what's in the environment at that time, at that present moment for the player. And as Chow pointed out in his research, actions are not pre-planned programs. And we need to move away from this whole idea of a player has muscle memory. And when a certain situation happens, the player knows a pre-planned routine that they have to carry out. And I see it day in, day out with coaches. And they have this whole idea of repetition and basket feeding and drop feeding. If I replicate the movement enough times, it just becomes autonomous and the player can just perform it. But we understand from the perception action coupling that it's not pre-planned commands. The body reacts to the environment in front of it. When that environment changes and when there's variability within the environment, the action changes. So again, a post like this, which is so technical heavy, focusing on the fundamentals of technique to make a good player, he completely muddies the water. And my issue with Monotoglu has always been he's got a huge social media following. I guarantee it's not even him writing the post. I guarantee it's a social media team. But because he's got such a huge following, because he markets himself as the best tennis coach in the world, people literally believe every single word he says. He could come out today and say that the earth is flat, and people will buy into it because he's saying it. And when he spews this stuff out about fundamentals and perfect technique and great fundamentals of movement or technique, people buy it hook, line, and sinker. And I guarantee there were people looking at that post and going onto court that night and coaching those things to those players, irrespective if it's for the player's needs or wants at that time. So, be careful what you read online. I'm sure I get loads of hate from the Monotoglu followers, but that's fine because the guy's a great marketing machine. He's a great salesman. He's very successful. Absolutely don't knock that side of him. But if he is going to start putting coaching content out there, he really needs to check the science. Interestingly, he didn't reply to me, so he didn't get back to me. I offered him 3 sources of evidence and science research. He didn't reply. Well, his marketing team didn't reply. He's probably too busy doing other things. Until next time, check out mytenniscoaching.com. Check out My Tennis Coach Academy if you're interested in learning how to be more ecological dynamics focused. And until tomorrow, watch the video on the screen now. I'll speak to you soon.